So, hi everybody and welcome back to the Unreal Engine 5 full game tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 47 and in this video we continue with our game. And let's go to our overview fast so that we know where we are. Here is my overview and I updated it a little bit. You can see it. We already talked about the first block there. We get all the assets, our references. We planned our game that it should be a first person, detective game, horror game, all this kind of stuff we did here at the first block, and then we made a game setup where we tested this assets. We set up our project setting, we made a package testing for lightning and a little bit gameplay so that it all looks right and that we are not surprised that later it is not working, something like that. And I updated this third block here. You can see this was normally not here, it's game story. And this game story is needed to introduce a pre-story for our gameplay scene so that the player know what happens before and why he is in the scene and what he has to do, something like that. And now we have to go to the start game. We already talked about the start game, but we are in start game now. Let's open up this start game block and you can see it's very empty because there I had to decide what kind of start game I want. For example, you want a trailer or a picture or anything like that, and I decided no, I just make a very straightforward simple main menu widget that I need. And the reason for that is because, like I said, we have only 7 days. I give me only 7 days for this game, and in 7 days we cannot go for all the creative parts which we should put in phase 2, which means after you finish all the core systems, then you can add all the additional creative parts which you want: trailers, pictures, effects, particle effects. But before that we try to finish our core system. And our main menu widget is very simple, straightforward, fast, and I will do this in my game. So, but we have still a problem because now I have to decide what main menu widget I use. And the reason why this is a little bit a problem, because we can create, of course, our own main menu widget, which is very easy normally. We have already created one, but it's not too difficult if we make a very simple one. Or we can say, hey, wait a minute, we have get this assets of this horror engine. And actually this horror engine itself has also a main menu widget. Why not use that? And that's a good question. So we have to decide. Perhaps when I start this game, you can see here is this horror engine main menu. And we have here some options. And perhaps we have to change a little bit and set up a little bit. But the main problem about this main menu widget of this horror engine is you have to study it. What I mean with study, you have to analyze it. So you have to go to this main menu. This is this designer, how they created this main menu widget, and you have to see how they implemented this buttons here. These are fairly easy actually, how they implemented this kind of stuff. The more problems are like I faced here was this first thing, this check load game, because this setup all the other things here, or let's say here this variables, where you have to figure out where are the references, so how they use this main menu in this horror engine itself. And I had, for example, a problem here. I just disconnected this one here. Then it worked very fine without this check load games. And yeah, so the point is you have to figure out how this horror engine works and if you can integrate this in your gameplay. So like I said before, I make a start game. We are at start game and we have decided to use a main menu widget. You can use your own main menu widget, so don't worry if horror engine has this main menu widget. You can just create your own main menu widget and set this up here in, you don't have to set this up here in the HUD class, but what you can do is just use it in your game mode class, because the game mode can spawn it, and you can just ignore the other widget from Horror Engine. But I think in my game I will probably use this Horror Engine, and the reason for that is there is so many set up. What I mean with so many set up is when I start this game here and I make resume game, you can see it works out of the box. That's nice. And when I press here M, which is also our input setup, it pops already up. I can go back. I press escape. It is already some input setup. So the problem again is, of course, you have to read all this setup. So you have to go to the project settings. You have to analyze how they set up these inputs, for example. Let's see. Here are some inputs. Then this is the Horror Engine input, what they are using. This is very nice. Then you can see how the inventory, how you can call the inventory, for example, with the tab, how you can jump with spacebar. This is very helpful that you just read this in general. And the nice thing is it is already set up, so I can just use it. The problem is you have to read through and understand it, but that's okay. And the next thing is when you did this, of course, like here, the next problem might be how they call it, where they call it. That's more the problem, not how they call it. When you have something like that, that's nice, but then you have to figure out, okay, where they call it, why it's not working, and all kind of stuff like that, how they implemented this one. If you figure this out, this will be very nice, because then all is set up and you can use that. All right, in my case, let's I have not finished implemented this one, but let me show you here something. Let's say like before, I'm still interested finishing my main menu widget, but the problem is, again, you can make a new level like I said before, and or you can say, hey, I don't need a new level. Why not just start here in this gameplay scene, so that I have not to load the whole level, because loading the level can take also time, depends on how big your game level is. For example, this level will be not big, and I will delete some more parts because I make a very small playable part. And all other parts far away I will just delete. It's anyway dark, you will see nothing, so I can delete it even easier. That's very nice. And yeah, then we have to set this up. So let's go to this level. This was, I don't know why I have here this one, but let's say save selected. So this is my main menu level. It's just a plain level. You can see it's an empty level. There's nothing in. But when I start here play, because I have set up here the project settings, oops, not the editor settings. Let's go here to the project settings. I set up here in maps and mobs. Where is that? Here. Here. We have set up in maps and mods already this default settings, which means default mode is game mode, this Horror Engine. So even I have not set up here in world settings that here none. Don't be irritated by this one. This one is using this project settings here. So when I start here, I'm still using the Horror Engine, and you can see how this looks like, right? So this would look like this one. Then you have to set up these buttons here, what they are doing. Perhaps you should here replace this background. You can see there is this in the back, this white round circle. Perhaps you set up here a picture, what you like, but definitely I will probably set up here a title, because game title. And I make this probably just game title, this little menu here, and then you press this new game. Then you this little load screen was set up by the Horror Engine. You can use it, or you can just replace it with your own picture and perhaps solve this other way. But you can see this one is just for my test purposes. Normally you are in game, and I would now get rid of this, there is just a little setup here, but normally it will be this one, and you can see I can directly use it without much. And because the input was there already set up in project setting, for example M for map, for menu, I press M, I'm back to menu, I can click resume game, or escape was also menu, you can see very easy, and I did nothing and I have it. Just the only thing what I did is probably analyzing this horror engine, how they are, and a little bit setup I still have to do with this implementation, right? But it is still good, I think. And let's see, oh, that's the map here. All right, so what I have to do now is decide what I use. And I think I go just for this. I'm not sure about this absolute 100%, but I think I use just the horror engine main menu. Because then I'm finished. You can see here, this is it. Then here I add a title. And yeah, that's it. And then I press new game. And then of course I set this one up properly. That is my setup. And that I will do in the next video, because this was again a little bit planning, but I think that's okay. But here one more thing. In my last video, we talked about a pre-story, right? That's very important that we know. Before we play this game, we tell this pre-story. And we can tell this pre-story, I already mentioned this as well, with a text version or with a audio version. I will again use just the audio version here, because 7 days we have not too much time. But in general, I would prefer both versions. And the reason is very simple. Perhaps there are people who can't use audio. Then they have the option to use the read version, so the text version. So they don't need audio at all and still understand all. And that counts also for gameplay. For example, I will later use the gameplay audio. For example, I give a hint, but with our audio, right? For example, here comes up and said, before I go out, I should find something that makes light, something like that. And then, oh, there is, what a coincidence, there is a lighter. Of course, not the stupid like that. You should a little bit more effective. But now you can see, now you can go out and see a little bit more than before. That makes a little bit easier to find something, all right? But all this in audio, which means audio cues or something like that. Recording, I will use then the microphone. But in general, when you make a game, when I play the game, what I mean in general is, it would be, like I said before, interesting also a text version. For example, it pops up here anything, like, I don't know, when I press F11, for example, here, that is the player what they see later in the game, right? This is sort of view what they have. And then instead of instead of audio, I could pop up here on the bottom of the screen perhaps a little text and say, and he can read, let's say here, the same scenario like before. I go out, it's dark, and then it pops up a little text here on the bottom and say, I should try something, find that gives me light or something like that. I don't know. All right, you get the idea. And in my case, I will use a microphone, but for in general, consider different ways and prefer that what you use. So with that said, I think we have planned a little bit our start game. So in the next video, I will just continue from here, how I implement this a little bit better. So I will show you this one, how we set up here this level. It's very simple, we already have it, but how we, I said probably here, very simple title. And with the title, I think that's almost finished. Just remove this back little circle here and all this coding stuff. And then when we make here this new game, we will not jump into this gameplay. Of course, we will not jump here because, like I said before, I need to deliver the text anyhow, the story, the pre-story, and then after the pre-story, we are here and we know why we are here, and that's it. I think that's so the plan. So the next in the next video, we are implementing all the starts thing, right? So the start menu, and till then, I have still to decide if I'm using really the horror engine menu. That means I have to study now all these inputs, how they set up here the buttons, how the input settings are, and all the references. You can see there are some files which you have to go in. For example, here's main menu setting. Here, careful when you see something like that. Don't get afraid. They have put all in one file with different things. This is just the one file which we are interested in. The other files not. And yeah, you have to analyze this and try to understand it. But after you did this, you can just use it. And if you say that's too much work and I can't make it work, just create your own little main menu widgets. It's very simple. Your own widget with main menu. You make just like I did in my first game, a very simple widget. Add to viewport, remove it when you don't need it, bring it up when you need it. And all this kind of stuff we will do in the next video. So, with that said, I think we come to the point where I stop this video. And if you have any questions, any complaints like old time, or any suggestions, write it in the comments. And with that said, see you in the next video. Bye, good luck, and like all time, have fun and never give up.